He came with a message of peace. Ifshu salam, this is what he said, spread peace around you. And he was facing the powerful, he was facing the unjust, he was facing the corrupt people, and he was facing the oppressors. Understanding that if you come to spread peace, you're not going to get a peaceful response. Don't let the people be the masters of your behavior. The only one who is your master is Allah, and Allah is telling you al-akhlaq, your ethical values. Because the Prophet, إِنَّكَ عَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, you have the best characters. So what we have to do here is to understand that the way we are going to face all these accusations and rejections and lies that we have is to stick to our principles. I'm not going to fall into this. I'm not going to be at the level of your level. I'm not going to respond to this. If we keep silent, who is going to talk? Who is going to talk about what is happening in the West? Who is going to talk about what is happening in the Middle East? Who is going to talk about the Palestinians? Who is going to talk about the people who are in jail, unjustly put in jail and dying in jail today? This is what, and the civilians that are killed in Syria and that are killed everywhere. We have to be the voice for the voiceless when it comes to the government. You should never accept to be colonized by fear. This emotional politics, it's against your rights, it's against who you are. So if you are at the same time Muslim with wisdom, citizen with rights, we have to stand up.
Sheikh Tariq Ramadan, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's an absolute pleasure to host you here at our Cage offices and to speak to you about something that we feel is crucial for the development of our communities in the UK. Firstly, I wanted to ask you, we at Cage have been campaigning for justice. We have asked our people to witness, and in order that we can empower ourselves through that witnessing, become recorders of history. As you know, that in this field you end up earning the ire of sometimes powers, governments and so forth. How can we fight for justice as Muslims and people of no faith, in the knowledge that we will sometimes be targeted by the state?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think that it's very essential to understand the essence of the message of Islam and all the religions, by the way. It's not only coming from the Islamic tradition. When it comes to the believers, when it comes to the people who attend to faith, we need to understand the connection that this has with the very meaning of justice in our life. The starting point of the human history is with Adam and Hawa, radiallahu anhu, saying what? قال اللهم ظلمنا أنفسنا. We have been unjust with our own self. Meaning, the starting of life with God is to be just with your own self. And then you also have to spread justice around. And the ayah in the Quran is clear. God commands justice. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ. So our faith is about this. And كُنْتُ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You are the best community. Insofar as تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر, you command justice and you resist. You command the just, the right, and you resist the bad. So this is something which is essentially in our tradition as Muslims. So I would say that when you as Cage are promoting justice, you are reconnecting, reconciling the very meaning of faith in society, because we are with God and we are with human being. And what Allah is asking us, what God is asking every single believer, is transform yourself for the better, change the world for the better. That is what you should do, and this is the way you bear witness to the message before people.
And so in terms of our transforming ourselves, bearing witness, if there are powers, people that are stronger than us, we are individuals and small organizations, that they get upset with us, they see it as a challenge, how do we respond to them? What's the best way for us to deal with responses by states that perhaps don't understand what we're saying?
First, what is very important is to come back, and I really think that as believers we have to come back to the origin. We have to come back to our model, the Prophet, peace be upon him. He came with a message of peace. Ifshu salam, this is what he said, spread peace around you. And he was facing the powerful, he was facing the unjust, he was facing the corrupt people, and he was facing the oppressors. Understanding that if you come to spread peace, you're not going to get a peaceful response. You're going to get people saying, we're not accepting, because you are challenging the power, you are challenging the status quo, and you are challenging the very reality of being dominated, and understanding that Islam is all about liberation and freedom and equality and dignity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We gave dignity to human being. So when you are facing this, first we need to know that this is Sunnat Allah. It's coming from the very essence of human history. This is what is going to happen. You come with faith, you are going to face people who are going to oppress, who are going to kill, who are going to insult, who are going to reject. What are you going to do? To respond the same way? لا تسبوا الذين لا يؤمنون. So you should not respond in the same way. You should get the very meaning. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. If the people are rejecting you, if the ignorant are insulting you, what you have to do is to respond with a word of peace. قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. It's not to compromise your principles. It's to stick to your principles. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop promoting what is right. And this is what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. You want me to stop? Give me the sun. Give me the moon. I'm not going to stop, because this is a word of truth. So I'm going to face. But I'm going to face power. I'm going to challenge power with wisdom, soft words. This is what Moses was asked to do when he said, وَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. It's soft words, but powerful. Stick to your principle. Don't compromise, and come to let the people understand that you are going to face oppression and you are going to spread peace at the same time.
And so now, with the rise of the far right, I mean, you've seen over your lifetime, I've seen over my lifetime, things change dramatically. On the one hand, people are returning to their faith. On the other hand, particularly in the Islamic world, they are being targeted primarily because of returning to that faith and a misunderstanding of what it means. So when we see organizations or movements like the National Front in France, or in Geert Wilders in Amsterdam, or even Donald Trump in America, are we doing something wrong? Are we missing a trick by allowing such people to hate us so much?
I think that when we look at our recent history in the West, and it's true in the UK, because things are changing in the UK, things are changing in Europe, and things are changing in the United States of America. This is the reality. You have populists now who are targeting Muslims. And it's two things. What we need to understand is that when you are targeted, try to understand the reasons, what is behind. So you have multiple reasons. The first one is their own failures, because they don't know how to deal with unemployment, they don't know how to deal with social justice, they don't know how to deal with the political problems that they are facing. So the best is to transform the political situation into a cultural opposition. It's because they are Muslims. This is why we have these problems. This is the very old xenophobia rhetoric. It's coming back, but now it's not about foreigners, it's about Muslims. All of them are Muslims, so target them. This is the new enemy within. So this is one. We need to understand that it's beyond us. Now, why is it coming to Islam? Because what is happening is the opposite of what they are saying. The historical integration of Muslims within the Western society is working. But they are saying exactly the opposite. We don't have a problem as Muslims. We abide by the law of the country. We are trying to have our own institutions, and it works. Now, what they want is for us to fail. And what does it mean to fail? Is to respond to their call. Be moderate Muslims. And moderate Muslims is Islam, is Muslims without Islam. Is in their mouth, in the way they are talking about us, is we don't want you to be faithful Muslims, we don't want you to be practicing Muslims. The only good Muslim is the Muslim who is an invisible Muslim. So we need to get this rhetoric coming from them, and to understand that what we need to do here is to sometimes we have to stop talking about Islam and be more Muslims in the way we behave in our society, in the way we have this moral, ethical distinctiveness, which is so important for us. Let us be visible out of our principles, not out of our words. That's the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, was. So this is one thing that we need to do. And we have a problem. To tell you the truth, the problem is we don't know how to communicate. We are not communicating enough. We have to reach out to the people. At the end of the day, if the people, our fellow citizens, don't get it, don't know who we are, we cannot just blame the West, blame the governments, blame everybody. We also have to look at ourselves. Are we doing the job? Are we now interacting with people? If the media are talking about us in such negative way, Are we now having a positive presence at the grassroots level to get out of our, social ghettos and cultural ghettos and to reach out to the people and just be who we are and show in which way we are an added value? We need to let the people know in the West that in this country we are not going to apologize for being Muslims, but we are going to show how much we are an added value in the society. This is what we have to do.
So just following on from that, it's very important that you are somebody yourself who has been, as you said, you have been in the past targeted in the media and accused of all sorts of things that Muslims generally get accused of nowadays. Then, so as a working example, could you tell us how you responded to this and what is the way to respond, especially if you're speaking truth to power? You will be targeted by the various states that exist within power. So what is the right way to respond? Allah says in the Quran, "Idfa billati hiya ahsan," respond with that which is best.
Yeah.
But when you're actually being targeted in this way and you feel like the world is descending upon you, how do you actually respond in the best way? What is the best way?
I think you might have to teach me, because out of your own history, I think that we are all learning from you and what you went through, because this, I think, it's very essential. I think that it's exactly this: idfa billati hiya ahsan, the best way, the best manner. What does it mean? It's about three things. The first is about al-hikmah. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil-hikmah. Al-hikmah is this wisdom, is the way you behave. Don't let the people be the masters of your behavior. The only one who is your master is Allah, and Allah is telling you al-akhlaq, your ethical values. Because the Prophet, innaka ala khuluqin azim, you have the best characters. So what we have to do here is to understand that the way we are going to face all these accusations and rejections and lies that we have is to stick to our principles. I'm not going to fall into this. I'm not going to be at the level of your level, and I'm not going to respond to this. And this is coming from the Prophet ﷺ, always have the upper hand in the discussion, out of wisdom and with this. The second thing, when you stick to your principles, is to stick also to your vision. What do you want to achieve in your society? What do you want? Because this is where, don't confuse powers, governments, and fellow citizens. That's the problem that we have. Some are talking to their fellow citizens the way they have to talk to power, and they are not talking to power the right way, because they are scared. So we have this. And that's something which is important. We need to know how to talk to power by saying we are not going to give up. If we are Western Muslims, we have to talk to the Western governments the right way. What you are doing here is wrong. What you are doing in other countries, by the way you are colonizing, by the way you are killing, by the way you are bombarding, I'm not going to support that. I'm not on that side. That's against my principles. So I might be a British citizen or a European citizen, but there is one thing which is important. As a European citizen, I stick and I belong to my principles. And my principles are also the principles in this country. So you are behaving against the British values and against the European values. So we need to face the governments. This is the added value. If we keep silent, who is going to talk? Who is going to talk about what is happening in the West? Who is going to talk about what is happening in the Middle East? Who is going to talk about the Palestinians? Who is going to talk about the people who are in jail, unjustly put in jail and dying in jail today? This is what, and the civilians that are killed in Syria and that are killed everywhere. We have to be the voice for the voiceless when it comes to the government. Now we should not confuse the governments with many of our fellow citizens who are the victims of media propaganda, who are the victims of the way they are listening and hearing about Islam. This is where we have to be the mediator. We have to reach out to these people, talk to them, and be the good example. This is something which is essential, and it will take time. We should not be in a hurry. It will take 1, 2, 3 generations. But what we have been achieving over the last 2 generations is tremendous. I keep on saying to Muslims, be positive. Don't be obsessed with all the failures that you see, because what we have been achieving is much more important than that they say.
So following on from that, let me ask you then, in terms of a personal example, if you have any, from all of your visits around the world, your lectures, your debates, your discussions, interaction with ordinary people, Nigeria, Morocco, Switzerland, wherever it is, is there any one example you can think of an ordinary person that's faced great odds and has challenged, one person, an organization, or whatever it is, that has challenged the status quo, stuck to their principles, and managed to find some kind of resolution?
Yes, there are many. I think that there are many examples, in fact. There is, for example, the people who were on the side of Nelson Mandela in South Africa. And one of the closest friends, Ahmad Kadallah, who was the closest friend of yes, exactly. Yes. Who passed away recently. Is if you see his history and in which way he was on the right side of history, because we had Muslims, by the way, in South Africa who were on the other side, who were supporting the apartheid thing, and you had people being strict with their principles, understanding that they are not going to compromise with the Islamic principles, and they were involved in facing the government, ready to pay the price. More than 23 years in jail, and getting out of this, strict with the principle, and having Mandela saying, I learned Islam from this guy, and I respect so much Islam and the principles of Islam. So the spiritual dimension of Islam came to him through the people he had around him. Rwanda, when I went to Rwanda, and I saw so many ordinary Muslims. We don't speak about them, but these people who were welcoming the Tutsi when they were going to be killed in the mosque. Exactly. Welcoming them and facing, the authority and saying, no, you're not going to enter the mosque, because in the mosque they should be safe, and they will be safe. These were courageous, ordinary Muslims saying, we are beyond ethnic cleansing and ethnic oppositions, and coming with this deep understanding of we stand for justice, we stand for the dignity. So we had exactly the same in Ivory Coast. We had exactly the same with people who were very strong as Muslims and protecting people or needy people, or protecting oppressed people in the name of Islam. So we also have the people who are struggling in Burma, the Rohingyas, and you also have these people facing the Burma's government and saying, we are not going to let you do this, and coming even with some Buddhists at the grassroots level who were saying, in the name of our Buddhist tradition, we cannot let this happen. So I would say here that we have multiple of examples, that we have to go beyond. It's very important to have role models, and we all know about Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah, who said no to the Vietnamese War. But we have lots of anonymous people, even here in this country, even in this country, from your example to so many who are saying, no, that's not going to happen. In the name of my principle, I'm not going to betray, I'm not going to compromise, but I will keep something which is essential. All this should be done with wisdom, with a peaceful mind, knowing that at the end of the day, what is important for me, it's peace in my heart, peace around me. That's what I am here to promote, and I am here to achieve and accomplish.
So now we have, in Britain, we have a series of anti-terror legislations that have been passed over 15 to 16 years that have de facto only affected the Muslim community. You've had Muslims imprisoned for writing poetry in the land of Shakespeare. You've had people imprisoned for writing books that were published in some cases in the 8th century AD, 9th century AD. Britain in many ways has almost rescinded its own values that were enshrined within Magna Carta. Again now, as people who are recipients of some of the worst aspects of anti-terror legislation, Prevent, for example, that's come into the schools, into the Muslim home, where do we go? Who should we go to complain about this, or should we even complain about it?
Of course we should, because I think that where we are heading now within our societies, and here in the UK, is not going to work like that. Because in the name of this war on terror, and then we were told it's over, the war on terror, but the policy on terror is still there, monitoring the Muslims and making Muslims suspicious, and practicing Muslims are becoming suspicious now. So we have to be clear here. as British citizens. And this is where I keep on repeating this to Muslims. If you are a British citizen, and if you understand what it means to be a British citizen, you should never accept to be colonized by fear. This emotional politics, it's against your rights, it's against who you are. So if you are at the same time Muslim with wisdom, citizen with rights, we have to stand up and say, I'm not going to let this go.
You just used a term, you said colonized by fear.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because it sounds like a powerful statement, but what does it mean to you?
Colonized by fear, it means that at one point the pressure, the media pressure and the power pressure on you are Muslim, you are suspected, that you end up being scared about your own identity. So you end up thinking, to be a good Muslim in this country, let me be an invisible Muslim, or let me come with an invisible practice, or even some are changing their names. Some are not even visible in the way they dress. They are scared. So this is to be colonized. Your mind is colonized. And if I colonize your mind, that's over. I am winning the whole game. So I think that this is a liberation process. Islam, in spiritual terms, is to liberate your mind from any colonization and any shirk. Shirk means if power is stronger in your mind than faith, you are in trouble. This is shirk. This is the starting point of shirk. And this is what came to the Prophet ﷺ. Don't think that you are going to save your community talking to the powerful. You are going to save your community when you give its value to a poor man coming to ask about the Quran. Abasa wa tawalla means what? He exactly. And then he changed. He was talking to the rich to protect the community. No. He is the protector, you are the mediator, you are the messenger. So we need to come with this. This is where we are free, so we have to be free. And true freedom now is to start not to be colonized by fear and not to get in this emotional politics. Populists are dealing with this, and we are not victims. We are not victims. We have to get rid of this victim mentality. So I would say here that we have a lot to do to be able to get the right understanding of what it means to be a citizen, a British citizen. Face power, serve the people. Serve your fellow British citizen by showing him and her in which way there is a propaganda here. They are manipulating the people. They are changing, and they don't want to acknowledge the fact that Islam is a European religion. It's a fact.
Yeah, I think that one of these things, that was something I've been working on recently, is just looking at the massive contribution that Islam and the Arabic language, for example, has made to the English language, through the sciences, the Renaissance, and all of that's been widely studied and still not taught. But I want to ask you something in relation to our personal faith. We're Muslims, according to the Hadith, that faith is 70 odd branches. The highest of it is the belief that there is no God but Allah, and the lowest of it is removing something harmful from the road. People often tend to separate faith from action, because the interpretation of this hadith, some people will say the highest by its very nature means it's a belief in the heart. The lowest is an action, removing something. How do you reconcile the two? How do you bring it together?
They don't get the very meaning of the hadith. The highest level is the source of everything that you are going to do. To believe is an act in itself, of course, is the highest one. Taqwa is the highest thing, is the source of everything. But how are you going to see the source of everything? In the smallest thing that you are doing, by removing hardship on the road, everything that you are doing. So the connection here is get the highest level, the light of all your behavior, which is your faith. And now it has to be visible in all the details of your life. So I keep on repeating to people, the spiritual life is not to seek meaning far from the world, is to put meaning everywhere in the world. This is the spiritual life. This is active spirituality, intelligent spirituality. And this is what we need to get. So it's not the spirituality is, oh, you know what, there is a difference between my spiritual life and my religion and my... No, that's completely wrong. Spirituality is about action. Spirituality is about meaning in action. Spirituality is meaning in every single action. So the visible thing. So our face, by its very nature, is visible, and you have it in one verse of the Quran, which is very strange how it's constructed. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. So at the end you believe in God, and just before this you command what is right and you resist what is bad. What does it mean? Your face is visible. The people are looking at you. You bear witness to your message before people by the way you behave. And this is exactly what was said about the Prophet. Al-Khuluq al-Azim, that he has the eminent character. And this is why we, as Muslims, we have to understand that the highest level, the best behavior, the best action is acknowledging that there is one God, and this, everything else is as a consequences to be the visible side of your face. Your face, in Islam, put it simply, face is visible. How? Through your behavior. Not only through your words, through your behavior, the way you behave with people, the way you serve. And if somebody is going to ask me what is your goal in life, to be loved by him and to serve you, whatever you do with yourself, loved by him and to serve you. And you know what? I'm going to be loved by him the more I serve you. That's خيركم أنفعكم للناس. The best among you is the one who is the most useful for humanity.
Listening to you is like reading a very intelligent, thoughtful book. I remember listening to you a few times, and you've said, ask the audience not to clap. You said you had a fatwa on that. I don't want to hear about the fatwa, but I want you to tell me what's the reasoning behind asking people not to clap.
It's quite deep, in fact, in the way I'm seeing the community coming to lectures and responding by clapping very emotionally. And I wanted the people to understand, if you come and you listen to a lecture, you have to listen to the lecture the way you read a book. When you read a book, if you have a nice idea, if there is something which is important in the book, you stop, you think, and you ponder. It's a spiritual attitude, an intellectual distance that you take just to make something out of it. If you react emotionally, if you start clapping, you are losing track and the very essence of what is said. And I want the Muslims to be more spiritual and less emotional. So, imlik nafsak. So,
hold on to yourself.
Exactly. Control yourself. That's the very important thing. So, we should get rid of this, fashion that we have, big lectures, conferences that we're organizing, and we are very emotional. At the end, it's an emotional reaction to something which is not this. We are talking about serious things. We are talking about God. We are talking about life. We are talking about meaning. We are talking about death. We are talking about spirituality. We are talking about pondering on our own situation. So less clapping, more thoughts. That's, I think, the way forward.
Sheikh Tariq Ramadan, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I pray that we can sit down once again and speak
Inshallah.
and read from your book of knowledge.
Allah